feel like someone's staring at me.
Don't worry, take your time.
I will.
All of these Gen Xers these days just always on their phone. God, don't you ever talk to real people?
There aren't any left.
All we have left to talk to is your doll and Randy.
My doll.
Oh, your
My
doll.
doll.
Your doll.
That is a slam buddy.
Yeah, you
It's
call
not a
it what you
doll.
want. It's a doll.
It's a slam buddy.
Yeah.
This is me. This is the slam buddy of me in my wrestling outfit.
One day
don't
you'll
wrestle.
be able to get your own Mike doll, courtesy of Fuck Your Generation.
I'll even autograph it.
Well,
Silver pan.
your slam buddy has tried to take us out, so
Well,
I don't like calling it that. It's weird.
slam buddy?
Yeah.
You don't know anything about wrestling. It's like body slams. It's just slam buddy.
Yeah, and I gather that most of our podcast doesn't either, and
Okay, slam buddy is like this. Oh, fuck. Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah. And you have something to slam.
It's not what I think of when I think of slam buddy.
I broke me.
Yeah. God damn it. Now he doesn't work anymore.
He's been stretched out. Try the other side.
Your slam buddy's been stretched out too much, Mike.
Right. Maybe I have to put him in the mugs.
This is exactly what it's going to be like when you run the world, Mike. Or your Jen.
My Jen?
Uh-huh. Just be calling things slam buddies and everybody else is going to be laughing at you.
You guys are the one that changed the definitions of everything. I'm surprised that, like,
No, I think slam buddy has always been the same.
Oh, no, slam buddies is the...
Slam buddy, fuck buddy.
It's actually the name of the company. It's a wrestling thing. Body slams. All right?
I get
You
what they
guys-
were going for.
You guys are the perverted, promiscuous, freaking, you should wear clothes, but not a lot. Just enough to say you're wearing something, kind of a generation.
I'm wearing clothes.
I'm talking about your bitches, to be honest with you.
I don't have any of those. All my dogs are male. All right, Mike, give us some perspective. One day, or not, depending on your answer. One day, you guys will be the old ones. And one day, maybe
So,
you'll sit
like
in
the boomers are dead and we're next in line type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming sooner than we realize.
What do you think life will be like in the good old US of A when we did the boomers are gone? Now you guys are in their hot seats.
We're not going to be in their hot seats.
You're not going to take their hot seats?
No. So as Gen X, we've never really been good on participating. So, I mean, if you think about it, the boomers were working 74 hours a day and that kind of stuff and saying, you could be in a Mike's chair someday. And we're like, thanks for letting me know what it is that gets you there so I don't do it.
Right.
Right? So we just kind of kick back, observe, and do our own thing. And unfortunately for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta Max, that means the millennials are going to be running things. When the boomers die, the millennials are going to take over. And us Gen Xers, we're just going to bitch about millennials the same way we bitched about the boomers.
So there's obviously not enough have left the industry, but there's a lot of Gen X that is running like major Fortune 500 companies.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't taken, it seems like you guys haven't taken a complete backseat.
No, but if you think about it, Gen Xers running these companies are doing it their way.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take your hero and mine, Elon Musk. All right? Taking over Twitter, Tesla, SpaceX. And excuse the language, but he is and we are still the fuck you and your ways generations. Like, we see why the boomers did it. We don't like it. We're going to do our own thing. well, you should be doing this. Fuck you, start your own company.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, that's basically what he did, right?
Absolutely what he did.
Basically, regardless of if you agree with him or not, he said, he literally said, go fuck yourself a few weeks ago.
Exactly.
But he also said, fuck you. I don't like this. Watch me slap my dick on the table with $44 billion and I'll just buy it from you.
Right. He was the biggest dick in the locker room, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's, I think we can agree that is not the mainstream business model.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
Especially not now.
Because it really has gone boomer to millennial, right? And the millennial, I would say, is the start of the sensitive generation. And maybe it's because Gen X is kind of checked out of society in a sense, and we didn't go out there to try and toughen people up. You're just like, all right, if that's how you're going to be, just be it. And
yeah, I mean, you like we've talked about before, you were raised where you kind of had to do your own thing.
mm-hmm.
So, like you're saying, maybe that just seems to translate to that's how it's just going to be. Like, we're just still going to do our own thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have a few people running businesses and like that. We'll have a few people in politics, but look at, we just had the Iowa caucus, and it was for the first time ever, a Republican candidate got more than 50% of the entire vote with multiple people running, right? Mm-hmm. So Trump is in his 70s, the Democrat person, 70s. So you're still boomers, right? The only millennial running,
at least guaranteed for another 4 years, it seems.
The only millennial really running was Vivek.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have another 4 years of gerontology of the boomer generation. And then the next group that's going to run for power, I think, is going to be millennials, just like Vivek. I don't think you're going to have the real boomers going in there and striving for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to just drop to millennials, and boomers going to go out there and say, okay, I see what these clouds are doing. Mm-hmm. I don't want none of that. That they can't handle it. They just don't want to participate in it. We'll just go back and work in our garages, build our own companies, and that type of thing.
For the boomers or the Gen X?
For the Gen X.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're going to do. So millennials are going to take over, and I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening, because I believe they've been shielded from a lot of the portions of the world that the boomers had to deal with, and then they're going to get in there and they're going to have to handle people like me, like Gen X, that don't give a damn about their sensitivities. And now what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you already have flirtations with it, with the limiting of speech and that type of thing. If you look at X, formerly known as Twitter, right? Elon has been very big on letting everybody just say what they want to say.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the millennials were like taken aback, and they've left, or they're, traumatized by the things that people are saying. It's like, and so they've tried to limit what Elon can do.
Yeah. There's been an interesting, I've been following this growing, so not to get off topic, but I'll get off topic for a minute. Just
keep with our traditions.
Yeah, just keep with our traditions, because I want to talk about it for a minute. So it's been interesting, right? Because there's been a lot of the Tesla community. So there's in X, I've noticed there's a lot of siloed communities, right? As there's always kind of been on social media. You have different groups of people. So the Tesla community, who especially, there's a lot of you know, and I'm probably one of them too, but I don't necessarily go on there and defend Elon's every word or, you know,
Right.
whatever that's on there. But the Tesla community right now is very divided on Elon Musk's participation in X. So there's a big divide between those that want him to stop posting things about politics, his views on wokeness, whatever, right? And want him to go back to only focusing and speaking about things in tech. Where yeah, there's like a divide there, and there's a lot of people that want him to go back. And I do think it's interesting, right? Because his whole point in buying Twitter and making X go to the direction that it's going is for free speech, right? So I do think it's interesting because all of those people supported him in buying it, right? And now they don't like what he's posting, which is interesting because his whole goal in buying it was, I believe, especially for himself, was to get out of, I can just post what I want to post. I don't have to go in there posting as the CEO of Tesla. I can just go in there and posting as Elon Musk. And I can post whatever I want to post, whether that's memes, whether it's about one of my companies, whether it's about Tesla, or whether it's about politics. I just think it's interesting. He's in an interesting predicament right now with that whole thing because people view him as, because he's a CEO, he shouldn't be allowed to, or, you know, socially shouldn't be allowed to post the things in politics that he posts. But that was his whole point, was like,
Right.
I want to be able to post what I want to post.
And I think I think that's the thing that people struggle with Gen Xers about is we're not concerned about your rules.
Yeah.
You know, I think we talked about it just recently where I think they're like the Gen Z has like gotten rid of rules, you know, changed language, made up words and that kind of stuff. And now they're all running amok. Whereas Gen X, we acknowledge rules and we just say, yeah, we know that's a rule, but we're not going to comply.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do our own thing. And if you don't like it, you know, then, you know, come at me, bro. You know,
go fuck yourself, as it were.
Mm-hmm. We want the smoke and we're not afraid of the conflict and we're going to do our own thing. But I don't think that mentality and that attitude is what's going to lead nations, you know, it's not going to be mainstream. It's contrary to mainstream, and therefore it can't be in a position of power,
mm-hmm.
you know, as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So do you think that from that perspective, do you think that's not bad per se, but do you think that Gen X should be in any position of political power, or do you think that would, do you think because of that would actually it would go just as bad as anything?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, but I think we shouldn't be in power because we don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in power and you just want to be left alone, then there's going to be a lot of needs that go unmet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that if the leader of Israel and the leader of Russia wants to talk with us and we say, go fuck yourself, they don't care about your problems, that's going to be very good for, you know, worldwide collaboration. So yeah, we just want to do our own thing, leave us alone. I guess in a sense we're very libertarian that way. Politically speaking, do I think the US could use some libertarian values? Absolutely. I don't know that we need to give $1 trillion to Ukraine, $1 trillion to Israel, $1 trillion to Patagonia. You know, I think right now with the state of the country, it's like, how about for one presidential term, we don't give any money to any foreign nation, and we just take all that money, drop it into our own best interest, kill our deficit, pay off our debts, you know, fix our infrastructure and that kind of crap. That's what I would do, but that tends to piss off a lot of people, a lot of special interests and that type of thing. And I think that's how people end up getting assassinated.
Okay. So your thought is that Gen X, your prediction for Gen X is that they're not going to take the hot seat.
Yeah, we're not going to take up the mantle.
So you're leaving me with the millennials to take up the mantle, huh?
Yes, you are going to have to deal with the millennials, and I feel kind of bad about it.
Well, you will have to deal with them too.
But we don't. That's the part of the thing is like, you're like,
well, I agree with you from the perspective of you guys, like Gen X as a whole may act that way, but you will still have to deal with it. Unfortunately, like you may acknowledge the rules and may say, you know, go fuck yourself, whatever. But as our government loves to do, they love to, you know, add laws and not necessarily revoke or change the ones that already been added. So eventually you may end up actually having to deal with them.
I kind of view like the Gen Xers as like maybe the preppers of the world. It's like, okay, this world is getting stupid. I'm just going to go back to my farm. I have my chickens. I have my goats. I have my cow. I have my corn, my broccoli. I can self-sustain. Let's throw some solar panels up there and you're like, screw the world around us. We're just going to shrink into this. And if the feds want to utilize $100 million of resources to come to my farm and attack my family, well, so be it. So that's kind of how I see the Gen Xers. They're just going to shrink in and see what the millennials are doing. We'll bitch here and there about it, but ultimately, we're not going to want to step in and take over.
It doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
Well, it gives you the opportunity to step in and take over. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Mike.
Guess what?
What?
We have a sponsor.
I don't believe you.
No,
we have a sponsor?
We have a brand new sponsor from a podcast.
From a podcast for our podcast?
Yeah, a podcaster is sponsoring our podcast. Can you believe that?
No, actually, I can't.
It is. It's true. It's actually very similar to ours. It's a young guy and an older guy talking about generational shit.
It sounds like they just stole our idea.
Well, they kind of did because the sponsor. You wanted to know the name?
Yeah.
You would try to reveal it right now.
Yeah, I think so. I want to know.
The sponsor of our podcast is the Fuck Your Generation podcast.
They stole our name too?
Also known as FUG or F Your Generation, depending on, mixed company.
They stole our name and are copying our content?
We are self-sponsoring.
Oh, we're self-sponsoring. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, sorry. I'm a little slow.
And you know what they want you to do?
What would they like me to do?
They want you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Ding, ding.
Well, that's crazy because if it's us, I've already done it.
Have you? Have you really? I've been checking.
Well, okay, we both know you haven't been checking. I've been checking. And yes, we've subscribed, we comment, we like our own videos. We're just that amazing.
We want all of you to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, so why don't you follow in our footsteps, following in our footsteps?
Be like Brandon. Not let's go Brandon, but be like Brandon.
Yeah, white.
And yellow.
And yellow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, in theory, depending on the timeline, there are some age limits there that we have to overcome.
Yeah. I kind of feel like lately that they should change the laws, and to run for president, you should have to be 70 years old because that seems to be the only thing happening. Right.
Yeah, might as well make it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this isn't really the topic, but kind of getting into it, right? All right. So that kind of brings into the new question of not what will things be like when Gen X runs the world, because you've already told me that you're not taking
Gen X would not be running the world. We only hope to influence it.
So if millennials are going to be the next one to take it, where does that leave the US? Where are we going to end up? What are your thoughts? I mean, from my perspective, I'm watching them kind of step into that, because, you know, as we've established before, millennials, you're like in your 40s now. I'm sorry to tell you. So,
Oh yeah.
So with them stepping into that role, you kind of watch them as like big brother, right? Little sibling. You're watching them grow up. I mean, where are they going? If they're going to take up that mantle, where are they taking us then?
Soft people create hard times. And I can't think of anything softer than a millennial. I mean, melted yogurt is, I think, still more firm than a millennial.
Okay.
So I can only really say that you need to prepare for some hard times. And I think you are in a good position for it. Be wary of digital currency and the elimination of hard currency.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
And that's a whole topic on itself.
Yeah, that's definitely a whole topic that we can get into
I
at
look,
some point.
So people railed against like the strong man, you know, their strong man is toxic masculinity. It's like, that's absolutely false. It's the weak men that are toxic, right? The weak men have to resort to dastardly things to control others.
Right.
Right. Millennials are weak and soft, so they are striving to control things to maintain their own sanity and the functionings of the world the way they think it needs to function. So anytime someone goes sideways from what they want, they feel they need to do something about that and control and bring them back in. And that's going to be the Gen Z fight, because I see where you guys are already not wanting to be part of this thing. You guys are very much like Gen X, where you want to do your own thing.
Yeah, I think that just the like you spoke on, I think the hard part that's going to be for us is we want to do our own thing, but we want to do our own thing kind of lawlessly or without any structure, like you've talked about. So it because we don't have structure, it's kind of like want to do our own thing in this like spider web of all over the place.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Rather than like what you were saying earlier with the whole, you guys acknowledge this is the structure. We're just going to do it all together this way. Ours is kind of like all over the place this way.
Yeah, shotgun. Because you got like, I'm sorry, you guys aren't exactly granite either.
Right.
You guys have a high degree of softness in there, but I think what you guys have that's missing in the millennials is a sense of individuality. Millennials may claim they want everybody to have their own thoughts and be able to do their own thing, but in practice, it's everybody needs to be able to have their own thoughts within this
bubble. Yeah.
Now you can think and say anything you want as long as it's within these confines.
Right.
Okay? You don't have to be one of us as long as you're one of us.
Right.
And I don't necessarily see Gen Z being that way like the millennials are. There's still a certain softness, a little he called me Noonie head, I know I'm crying type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, for better or for worse, right? Like, and we've talked about this a couple of times on this podcast, that the overall generation of Gen Z, millennials, and I mean even Gen X, but just overarching, we're all privileged, right?
Well,
And so,
everybody born in this, everybody living in this country is privileged.
right. So that constant of
Mhm.
that, right? Just you end up at that point.
Right.
Just we stop having to worry about, like, for the most part, if we're gonna have food every night, and
Yeah,
so then
exactly.
we start to have the conversation of he called me a noonie head, or
Right.
whatever it
Yeah,
is.
because we're going to find the next thing to be upset about.
Yeah.
And I think if not you, then your kids is going to have to worry about freedom of movement. you
Yeah,
know?
I'm hoping. So this kind of gets into that kind of a great segue, as I ruined the segue by saying segue. So I'm hoping that Gen Z starts to, okay, we have these new values, but there are things in older values that still make sense to be applicable. So, like, for example, I know quite a few friends that are like, hey, we're rejecting the iPad baby nonsense. I don't want to raise an iPad baby. I don't want my kid to be that way, because at least a lot of Gen Z that I know were not raised that way. There was still some level of in my, we talked about that split in generations. In my side of the split, there was still a level of, like, outside, no tech. Not everybody had a cell phone, or not everybody had a smartphone, at least that
Right.
era. And I know we see, like, our younger versions of Gen Z, and we look at them and we're like, I don't want my kids to be like that. I don't want iPad baby kids and things like that. So I'm hoping that my set of Gen Z can acknowledge that, and, like, as we get into that hot seat, hopefully start to raise something that's a little bit different.
So people have a way of excusing themselves, right? They get mad at something that somebody does, and it's upsetting. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. But then when they do it, there's an excuse and why it's acceptable. I'm hoping that your generation can look at the world and hear what they're saying, but be able to see what they're doing and recognizing when it doesn't match.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a whole bunch of talk that isn't matching action.
Yeah.
But Gen Z isn't pushing through the talk to see what's actually happening. And I'm hoping you guys will do that.
I hope so too. I don't know if I have a really good grasp right now of what Gen Z looks like in that hot seat. Mainly because we just took the baby seats.
Right.
So just to be honest, like, I don't know if I have a good prediction of that, because I can only speak to where I've gotten so far.
Oh yeah.
And not everybody is in that same position.
I just encourage you that whatever anybody says to you about how the world works, whether it's business, politics, or education, listen to it, accept it, think it's all bullshit, and then research it for yourself. And when I say research, it's not, oh, I kind of believe it's true, so I'm going to prove that it's true. I'm more of I hope you guys take the let's get all the liars in one room approach. And listen to why is this bullshit, why is it fact, and then actually make a decision from that.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I hope as well. In my current role and position, I have to, and we have to, but I have to specifically take a step back and go, okay, thank you, X person, for your information. I appreciate you telling me this, and I believe you to a point. Let me double check. Right. Let me double check and look at what the paperwork says.
Because you don't know where they get their information from.
Right. Exactly. And I'm hoping that my generation can take that approach as the others take the hot seat. And also I kind of hope that they can take that approach now, and as future things are starting to come up before the millennials take the hot seat. Like, it's okay for us to do that now with the boomers still in the hot seat. With what we have to work with.
I feel like right now, with social media and the virality of it, and then the forgetfulness of the generation, it's like I can see something where, oh my God, Yellowstone is going to explode on November 13th based on this scientist research, and they fabricate the entire scientist, and then it becomes viral, and then November rolls around and it doesn't happen, and December 1st rolls around and everybody's forgotten about that. And so then that person can start a new thing, and they believe that person again. Is like, nobody remembers I was a dirty liar before.
Yeah.
You know? And that's really what I'm hoping you guys can recognize. Like, these people said stupid stuff and we proved it didn't happen. Now they're saying more stupid stuff. Why should we believe them?
Yeah.
You know, we believed them last time.
Yeah, it's interesting in the irony of having all the information at our fingertips, yet we just continue to let the same thing happen.
It's because easy and lazy are the real brothers of destruction.
Mhm.
And the easier we make things, the lazier people become. And so all this information is just brought to you real easy. So now you get lazy to double check it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's that as you make things easier, replacing it with something that is not so easy and challenging.
Oh, absolutely.
It's taking that next step of replacing that challenge. And unfortunately, our society as a whole doesn't do a good job at replacing that challenge. So you have to decide to replace that challenge.
Yeah. So you mad, bro? You mad that Gen X isn't going to jump in there and...
Well, I mean, a little. I mean, I'm kind of hoping you're wrong a little bit, just because I think that, well, just from a personal aspect, right? I think my mom is great.
Uh-huh.
I like you sometimes. I like some of the Gen X leaders in tech and industry. Some I don't, some I do. But I think there's kind of a good balance in fighting, and like a good competition balance between the two. And I don't know, I think that Gen X is in that sweet spot of, like you said earlier, okay, I saw what these guys did. I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it that way. I see what's coming after me. I don't like it, and I don't want to do it that way. So I think you're in a nice, like, middle place to actually make some decent decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, I feel like, in my own personal political opinion, our country does kind of need some of that. Hey, like, we'll get to you, but it can't be right now because we haven't gotten to ourselves yet.
Right.
And I feel like Gen X is a good generation to do that.
We're mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's about being mean, right? Because I don't know if I would describe that as mean. I would just describe that as responsible thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You trying to help other people before you yourself is in a good place. Like, there's lots of people that try to start rehabs and get re-addicted. And there's lots of people that try to lead people out of alcohol and then just end up drinking. I think we're kind of at that place as a country where we're like, oh, let me help you as we fall apart internally. And I don't think it's mean. I think we kind of need that. Like, let's be independent a little bit again before we.
So I say mean. Let me give you an example where I think how we're mean, and I'll use myself as an example. Years ago, when my niece was like 5-6 years old, she was spending a few weeks in the summer with their grandparents, my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there at the time, and I'd hang out with them, that kind of stuff. And she would say things like, I miss my mommy. I'm really sad I miss my mommy. And I'd look at her and say, you know what? I'm comfortable with that. And that was the level of sympathy and empathy that I could afford her. It's like, yeah, life's tough, kid. You know?
Just for context, Mike doesn't have kids, so.
And she would do another thing. Oh, I miss my daddy. I'm comfortable with that. Life's tough all over. You'll live. You'll survive.
Mhm.
It's all good. So I think that's a very Gen X thing. Yes, I acknowledge you're sad. In the end, I really don't care that much.
Mhm.
We're going to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily terrible as like a political leader, right? It may not always work in every situation depending on the situation as a parent, but
Right.
I don't know that like you as a leader of a nation, you can't necessarily.
I think it would be good as a nation for that type of thing. What I think is that it will enrage a couple of generations.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. And then that's where, I mean, we already have it. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Trump, and he says mean things, and he was mean on Twitter and that kind of stuff. And there's definitely legitimate reasons to dislike him, right? But there's a whole slew of people that have gone next level with it, to the point where I think Trump derangement syndrome should be in the DSM as a mental health problem that needs to be addressed. People fabricate things. Like, there's plenty of things to hate about him. You don't need to make other things up.
Right.
And he could come out here and cure cancer, but people would rather have the cancer than the cure because of the source.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it goes too far. And I believe a Gen Xer, and Trump is not a Gen Xer, but
I believe that would happen with.
I think that's the kind of enragement that people would feel with a Gen X president basically saying, oh yeah, I know you're hungry and you're starving, but you know what? I did some research. That Burger King 3 blocks from your house is hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and get the job, and they'll provide you some food. You can sneak it even. So, and
I got you.
I got the solution for you. You just don't like it, in which case, piss off.
Yeah. I gotcha. So you think there's a middle ground of the middle ground, huh?
There probably is something. I just think the way things are going is soft people create hard times, and that's your destiny.
Well, we'll see if you're right. It won't be much longer until we see if you're right.
I know.
The boom, as far as medicine has come, the boomers still only seem to be living for so long. So,
yeah, I think if we can cure that, we should hide it from them.
That's probably a good idea.
So, how about next time we talk, we do the same thing, except what do you think it would be like if Gen Z ruled the world?
We can.
Would they?
I don't know if I have enough information.
Well,
but we can make some silly predictions.
Well, it'd be your gut feeling, right? So you got a variety. I mean, I think Gen Z is the closest thing to Rainbow Coalition that there is.
Uh-huh.
All right, because you have the whole slew of personalities in Gen Z. So
that's true. Okay, for next time, I'll get my blue hair together.
And blue hair is the worst. The absolute worst. Go with like orange or something.
Okay, fine.
Pink.
Alrighty. Well, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for when we're putting out new videos.
And all that stuff.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And if you're hearing it a second time because we made some changes, good. That just is a reminder. Do it again.
Do it all the time.
Yep. Do it all the time. And if you don't want to do it, as Mike says, go fuck yourself.
Do it and do what you're told.
All right. Thank you guys for watching.
Peace be the journey.